Long ball is going to go for a touchdown. The game's over. Webster Slaughter.
Metcalf will go for the score. Unbelievable.
45-40. Run, William, run. He's got blockers in front. 5. Touchdown. Joshua Cribbs turns disaster into a score.
Sight wants it all on this one for Logan, and he is there.
Jim Brown to the 30. Jim Brown is going to go in for another touchdown.
The Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield.
Wow. It is Baker Mayfield.
I woke up feeling dangerous.
Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to a brand new episode of the 1085 Gridiron Podcast. I am your host, Anthony Joki. As always, I got Jack McCurry with me. How you doing today, Jack?
Oh, I'm doing good. Just another fun day in the life of a Browns fan. Despite the 2-5 record, we seem to get entertainment during the week, thanks to the players, the media, anything.
Yeah, according to Mike Polk, it's always fun times in Cleveland, and it never seems to amaze me the kind of stuff that goes on around here, whether it's weird things happening on the football field, stuff happening in the media, players and reporters going at it. It's just never ending, and so I guess that's where we're going to start off, because I think this turned into the biggest story of the day, and the Baker Mayfield, Tony Grossi saga is sort of continuing. I don't know if I want to call it a saga, just a back and forth, but you can tell that those two kind of feed off each other, and today it got a little heated, and I want to read the full quotes from everybody here just so we can start to discuss it. Tony Grossi stated, after the blocked field goal at the end of the first half, the 2-minute drive, it seemed like there was a lack of urgency there, or was something going on. Mayfield responded, there was a penalty, so we were in negative yardage. Grossi responded, but there was a lot of time between snaps. Mayfield chimed back, well, when the penalty happened, we were behind the chains. Grossi said, but the clock's not running. Mayfield said back, no, stop saying but. I just told you the clock was running and we had a penalty. Do you want to give them the ball back? No. You don't play, you don't know. That's just plain and simple. Grossi followed up and asked, were you happy with that drive? Mayfield responded, was I happy with that drive? No, we didn't score points. That's the dumbest question you could ask. What? Jesus, Tony, and walked off. Jack, do you want to have an open floor on this one and kind of dive into what went on here between Baker Mayfield and Tony Grossi?
I mean, you can look at it in a lot of different ways. I mean, let's go back a couple weeks ago to the Seattle game. We talked about Freddie Kitchens when he said that he was trying to score and then keep all the timeouts and then try to get the ball back and score again. Now he's being aggressive. That seems to be what Freddie Kitchens is. And this is kind of contradictory to that. But like Baker said, there was a penalty. You don't want to rush things. You don't want to be aggressive because you don't want to turn the ball over. So I get it from the Mayfield aspect. We all know the feud that's gone on between Grossi and Mayfield. Grossi's been very critical of Baker going back to the Oklahoma days. The majority of ESPN Cleveland, I won't throw the entire station under the bus because I do like some of the people there. I respect some of the people there. But the majority of that station has not been behind Baker Mayfield. They haven't been fair to Baker Mayfield, in the pre-draft process. And, if anybody that listens to that show or works at that station listens to this show, wants to call me out on that, I've listened to that station for years. They were not fair to Baker Mayfield, and they haven't been. And Grossi definitely hasn't been. So you can tell that Mayfield knows what Grossi says about him. And that there's not a mutual respect there. Grossi's doing his job, but let's be honest, Grossi hasn't been the most fair of the Browns media. And, there's plenty of them like that. But you can just tell Mayfield's frustrated, not just with the media, but I'm sure he's frustrated with his play. He's frustrated with the team record and everything that's going on with the Browns right now. And, at some point he's just going to blow up. Now, I know some people are trying to compare this to when Ryan Leaf blew up. It's not even close. What Ryan Leaf did that, we all know Ryan Leaf's story and what he was going through. And he snapped on a reporter. Baker didn't do that. It wasn't even close to what Ryan Leaf did to that reporter back in 1998. But you can just tell that Baker's frustrated, and he did blow up a little bit. Wasn't a big thing, but, with the frustration of playing poorly, the team playing poorly, at some point it's just going to boil over. It's not the first time we've seen this, and it probably won't be the last, but you just know that Baker doesn't like Tony Grossi. I'm sure Grossi doesn't like Baker at this point. You look back at Sunday in the New England game, Grossi asked the dumb question about the turnovers, which all weren't Mayfield. Mayfield only had one turnover in the New England game. And, Mayfield just doesn't like dumb questions. And seems that some in the media, including Grossi, tend to ask dumb questions. And I think that's why a lot of fans get mad with how the media covers this team.
Yeah, I wish that our good buddy Jake Burns was back asking football questions, post game and during the week, because that was a real breath of fresh air, and I think Cleveland.com really missed the boat on that one. And hopefully, at some point, Jake can get back in there or whoever, and ask those real football questions. And the players and coaches really seem to enjoy having those, and that's not taking shots at the media. Look, the media has a job to do. They're there to get all the information that they can from the team about the games, about practice and whatnot. The only issue I have is when they ask the same question 30 different ways and expect a different answer, and then get upset when they don't get the answer they want to hear. That's the only problem I have is when they repeat themselves so often and expect to get a different answer. Would you compare this to what happened a few weeks ago with Deshaun Watson and the way he and the reporter for Houston had their exchange, and Deshaun ended up going and explaining everything very thoroughly? Would you compare that to this situation at all?
Yeah, you can compare it, or not. There's a difference. The Texans media seems to ask smart football questions, and this is not saying all the people that cover the Browns media are stupid. There is I like the majority of the media in Cleveland. I think they do a good job. I'm just naming names. I think Darryl Ryder covers the team well. Zach Jackson, Fred Greetham at the OBR, Scott Petrak, Nate Ulrich. There's quite a few names, but there are those. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to be disrespectful. They ask dumb questions, and if I know you have to get your clicks. Anthony, you and me, we write. Would we like a ton of clicks? Yeah, but are we going to blow things out of proportion to get those clicks? Hell no. We're going to give you straightforward opinions on how we feel about the Browns and what we see on the field and what's going on, and we're just going to be straightforward with you. The Houston reporters asked a smart question. I think Deshaun Watson respected that and gave a detailed, thorough answer on it. I think, some in the media here ask dumb questions, and you're going to get smart answers back from whether it's from Mayfield, Myles Garrett, Odell Beckham, whoever on the team. Don't try to play stupid with the media or the players. They are human beings. They're intelligent. They will give you a straightforward, thorough answer, but don't try to sound like a third grader and ask a question. And then if you don't understand what the guy said, don't ask it again because you're going to get a stupid question back.
Yeah, and part of it is, and this is where I want to go with this. Part of it is there is so much media access. There's post game, there's 2 or 3 practices throughout the week. Typically, they talk to the media the night before the game, but typically that's just a TV crew. But these guys are up there 3-4 times a week, and to me that seems unnecessary. Now, like I said, I know the media has a job to do, and I respect them for doing it. But is there a point where you think there is too much media access, and that doesn't fall on the media or the team? That falls on the NFL. The NFL mandates that these players have to be available for all these media sessions, and at least to me, I think it's a little too much.
Yeah, I mean, the players only have to meet with them one day a week. Like, typically Wednesdays are Baker Mayfield's day. And then you probably get Odell Beckham this day. You probably get Myles Garrett. You get the stars on Wednesday. Then you get the second-tier stars on Thursday and then Friday. Typically, I don't remember any players meeting. But my point is, they only get Baker Mayfield one day a week. They get Freddie Kitchens 4 days a week, 5 if you count the Monday conference call. I do think that might be overdoing it somewhat. I think that you don't need to meet with the coach every day. But like you said, it is NFL mandated. Should they scale it back a little? Maybe. I would scale it back more with Kitchens, because why does he need to basically answer the same questions 5 days a week? 6 if you count game day as well. You're going to get the same questions essentially post game. But with the players, you're only seeing them 1 day a week. 2 if you can get them on the post game, which Baker gets them. And then if a star player, like say for instance Nick Chubb got to sit up on the podium when he had the monster game against Baltimore. Usually it's only Kitchens and Baker. So I don't think that's the issue. I just think we need media people that are going to ask better questions so that you don't get situations like today where Baker is just frustrated and he snaps.
Or do you think it's more of a timing issue? Because, look, today's Wednesday. The week is halfway over. The game was 3 days ago on Sunday. Do we just need to have all these interviews on Monday, get it over with, and that way for the rest of the week, it's just the head coach and what you're preparing for in the game on Sunday that you're going up against?
Not necessarily, because, you had Baker right after the game, Sunday night. Why didn't you ask him the questions then? Talking about this 2-minute drill or whatever. I know that they only get a certain amount of time and a certain amount of questions, but if you want those answers, why not get them Sunday night when you're talking to them post game? I know, like I said, they only give them a certain amount of time, but be prepared, have your question ready. And if you don't get it, then obviously you have to save it for days like today. But why not I would agree with you. Why not just have him talk Monday and get these questions out of the way and then bring him back Wednesday or Thursday or whatever and have him talk about the upcoming game? Because rehashing the stuff 3 days after the game, that's just, I think, trying to get clicks. And I know that's what a lot of these guys have to do because newspapers are out and it's more, digital platforms now. And that's how guys get paid, coming from my experience and work, doing sports writing where I got paid. You have to get the clicks essentially. So, I can't fault the media to a degree because I've been there, but they make more money than I do. So, I get it from both sides. It just needs, I think it just boils down to the questions need to be better. They need to be smarter. And I feel like, the players probably won't give smart ass answers all the time.
Do you have an issue with the way Baker handled this entire thing? Because he went on Twitter after he walked off and he said, everybody wants to hear the truth until they actually get it. I am who I am and always have been. Don't call it emotional when it's convenient and then passion when it fits. I care about winning, so yeah, I'm frustrated. If I was to act like it's okay to lose, then y'all would say I've gotten complacent. My sense of urgency is at an all-time high, and if I offend anybody along the way, that's too bad. Do you have any issue with that?
No, not at all. We all knew what Baker Mayfield was when the Browns drafted him number 1 overall about a year and a half ago. We knew he was going to be blunt. He was going to be straightforward. We knew that he wasn't going to take crap from anybody. And we also knew one thing. He's a winner. And Bernie Kosar said that on Twitter, too. He's not being complacent. Baker wants to win. We all want to see the Browns win. And I think Baker, more than anything, wants to see us win. Because he said at the Combine, if anybody's going to turn the Browns around, it's going to be me. He's had the biggest chip on his shoulder forever. Going back to his days at Texas Tech when Cliff Kingsbury didn't want him anymore. He walked on at Oklahoma, proved everybody wrong, won the Heisman, became the number 1 pick in the draft, and then set the rookie record for touchdowns. And he's going to be straightforward with you. And, some people don't like it. Tony Grossi's one of them. And, a lot of the media get frustrated because he's not mature enough to be an NFL quarterback. I disagree with that. I think he wears his emotions on his sleeve. And, we live in a PC environment these days. And some people don't like people that are straightforward. And, we have to learn to deal with it. I know it could be frustrating at times what Baker says and what he does, but we signed up for this and a lot of people were supporting it from day one. And you're just going to have to deal with Baker. What you see is what you get. And if you don't like it, you're going to have to deal with it until he's no longer the quarterback of the Browns.
I agree with that 100%. All right, let's move on to actually talk about some real football stuff. And the trade deadline was yesterday at 4 o'clock. The day before that, the Browns sent Genard Avery to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 2021 fourth-round pick. I know this made you and I both upset. I think with the way that this whole situation has been handled this year, you and I have talked at length on this podcast why we believe Genard should have been playing. They decided to cut ties with him, trade him to the Eagles for a fourth-round pick. Jack, I'm not going to ask you if this was the right move because I would tend to think that we're both going to say it's the wrong move, but do you understand what went on with this entire situation and why the Browns decided to move on from a player who had such a promising season as a rookie and struggled to find his way to even being active on Sundays this season?
It's still something that I don't understand. I mean, Genard Avery was a 5th-round pick last year and proved himself to be, at the time, the second-best pass rusher on this team. He was outperforming Emmanuel Ogbah, who was a 2nd-round pick. He was outperforming Chad Thomas, who was drafted 2 rounds ahead of Avery. And coming into this year, we thought, behind Garrett and Vernon, Genard Avery was going to be that 3rd rotational pass rusher, was going to be able to give those guys a break and come in and get after the quarterback, much like he did last year when he had 4.5 sacks, he had 14 QB hits, and made the all-rookie team on ESPN. From my understanding, listening around, I know Jeff Lloyd and Pete Smith were talking about this on Locked On Browns. It sounds like he didn't fit Steve Wilkes' defense enough because he wasn't big enough in terms of his height and his weight. Go look at James Harrison and tell me that a guy that's 6 foot, 200, between 240 and 250 can't get it done in the National Football League, because that's the exact size of James Harrison. And James Harrison busted his ass for 6 or 7 years, getting cut by the Ravens and the Steelers like 3 or 4 times, and then finally emerging into the Defensive Player of the Year. Genard Avery can play. There's no doubt about it. And, according to the reports, he asked for a trade. Dorsey didn't want to move him because he liked his upside, but ultimately granted the request and moved him out. That's disappointing that, Dorsey didn't hang on to him. I personally would have tried to move someone else and forced the team to play him, much like they did with Carlos Hyde with the Nick Chubb situation. But, I hope Avery goes to Philly and tears it up and sticks it to Coach Kitchens and Coach Wilkes. No offense to the guys that were ahead of him. Chris Smith, we all know he's dealing with a lot of things off the field after the tragedy in his life a month ago. And, Chad Thomas is what Chad Thomas is. He's not better than Genard Avery. And the fact that Steve Wilkes and Freddie Kitchens seem to think that is a joke. We didn't do a post-game show, and we could talk about the coaching, but I'm disappointed in the coaching right now on this team because they are underutilizing talent and trying to play guys that, quote, fit their scheme. That's not how you win in this league. You adapt to these players and their strengths, and that's how you win in this league. You don't try to force them into your offense or your defense. We've seen that too many times with the Browns, and this is why coaches get fired. This is why there's constant regime changes, because the Browns have not figured out how to utilize the talent that's laid in front of them. And, it sucks that Avery has to play for another team, but I hope he tears it up. Whenever the Browns play the Eagles again, hopefully I hate to say it, I hope he has a monster game and sticks it to the organization who thought he wasn't good enough to play.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Basically, the whole gist of what I wanted to say. Great coaches in the NFL adapt their scheme to fit the players, not vice versa. And I think with the situation with Genard Avery, it was the exact opposite of that. They were trying to get him to fit their scheme, to fit what they wanted to do. Not only has that happened to Genard Avery, but it's happened on other places on this team so far. And I think Odell has been a casualty of that, trying to force him the football. I think the same can be said about Jarvis Landry. But this team, I think, is really built to run the football, and throwing it 35, 40 times a game, I don't think is a way to win. But, on the defensive side, there's places for players like Genard Avery. You find packages or whatnot for him so he can excel. And you saw what he was able to do last year under Greg Williamson's defense, of all people. And he was able to be very successful in his pass rush ability. I wish that they would have held on to him, but unfortunately they decided to move on. And hopefully this isn't one of those trades that really comes back to bite them and where. I just think that they really made the wrong move here. I told you when the trade happened how angry I was. I've calmed down a little bit, but I definitely was not happy about this move. And I think, when they decided to move on from Vernon, who has a very big contract for next season, and I think it probably could have been this offseason, I think that they're going to really regret letting him go. And he could have been a player maybe with a full offseason of his expectations of what he needs to do to get into the proper shape that the coaches want, that they're not going to have him around. I think that's very disappointing, and it's unfortunate that he won't be here at all anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. The only plus side, and I know people hate talking about draft picks, is the fact that with the Corbett and the Avery trade, they picked up 2 picks in the 2021 draft. They have double picks in the 4th, 5th, and 7th rounds now. So that's one plus side, but, draft picks only get you so far. We have talent. They've dumped talent off. Not saying Corbett was talented. That was a bad pick. But yeah, Avery was a definite talent on this team. And, as much as I was praising Steve Wilkes at the beginning of the season, he's kind of soured on me. I just don't think the defense has been as good in recent weeks, especially the run defense, although they played better against New England. But yeah, it's just a shame that they waste talent away. That's why, with the trade deadline, I was kind of hoping they would move Rashard Higgins, because it's obvious that there's something going on between him and Kitchens. That's why he's not playing. And, I would rather see these guys that have shown talent and now aren't being utilized to go elsewhere, because if they're not going to utilize them here, I don't want to see these guys getting wasted away.
Yeah, definitely. But let's go back to the draft pick team really quick. I know I'll make this short. Getting those extra picks in those rounds helps you in a couple of ways. It helps you if you want to trade up from like the second or the third to get a guy you really want. The contracts on those picks are not as expensive as the higher rounds, and with the team who has to extend a lot of players coming up in the next couple of years, those picks will be very beneficial. So those kinds of picks help out. Now, transforming a 2018 fifth round pick into a 2021 fourth round pick, okay, but I would have rather kept Genard Avery at that point, but unfortunately, like I said, he won't be here. In terms of the other moves, I was surprised they didn't move Higgins like you talk about. I was surprised they didn't move Demarius Randall. I know the whole market on the trade deadline day was Jamal Adams getting moved, potentially getting moved. That ended up not happening. The Dallas Cowboys and the Baltimore Ravens were involved in that one, but weren't able to make anything happen. I don't know who else I would have moved. The only reason I would have moved those two guys is if you can guarantee yourself a pick instead of hoping that you get a compensation pick for those guys. That's why I would have moved them. But if they feel that they could really still contribute, and we'll see about that for the rest of the season, then I'm okay with holding on to them. Personally, I would try right now with those two guys not being playing as much. Try locking them up now. I don't know if they're able to or not, but I would try to lock those guys up now. Maybe you can get them a little cheaper than come off-season time. I'm not surprised they didn't try. Well, they tried to acquire Trent Williams weeks ago, but the asking price from Washington yesterday was just way too high and laughable. They wanted a first-round pick, Denzel Ward, among other picks, and I don't know what they're thinking over there in Washington, Jack, but that price is just utterly laughable.
Yeah, I was at the Cleveland Clinic for work yesterday, and when that alert came on my phone that they wanted Denzel Ward, I about fell out of my chair. And the funny thing is, and I sent it to you this morning, Charles Robinson at Yahoo Sports said 6 weeks ago the Browns offered a first-round pick for Trent Williams, and then the Redskins said no, so the dialogue continued. I know Ben Albright told Paul Brown that the second-round pick was on the table, but it seemed like the Redskins seemed to think that the Browns were going to finally give up a first-round pick when Bruce Allen was pretty much pulling John Dorsey around the last few weeks, saying, we're not going to trade him, then ultimately think that they're going to give up Denzel Ward, a first-round pick, other mid to late-round picks. No way. And to be honest, I'm glad they didn't do that deal because Trent Williams failed his physical. It sounds like he's holding out, which we all knew he wasn't going to play for Washington again. I'm glad they didn't do that deal. I was shocked that they didn't try to bring in a offensive lineman. I know Nate Solder was rumored. The tackle from the Eagles, whose name I'm going to butcher, so I won't even pronounce. There was interest there. But yeah, I'm glad they did trade for Williams. But I'm disappointed that they didn't try to bring in another left tackle because based on the grades, McCray didn't pan out very well on Sunday. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do going forward with the line. I would definitely put Wyatt Teller in there. I think the Eric Kush experiment should be put to rest. And, I'm just counting down the days until they can upgrade the right tackle spot because Chris Hubbard continues to be a major disappointment.
Well, here's the thing, and like you mentioned, we didn't really talk about the New England game. I thought, for as good as New England's defense has been this season, the Browns ran the ball pretty effectively. Now they did have the two fumbles. One was a fluke, the other was just a really great defensive play by the defensive back. But I thought they moved the ball really well, so it seemed like the old line kind of meshed together in terms of the running game. But and maybe that's a thing of with McCready starting left tackle. I know that they were flipping Cush and Teller right guard. If all goes well, I think Drew Forbes is probably going to start at right tackle. Um, you know, come Buffalo game, and that's also the game that they have Kareem Hunt back as well. So, I think the O-line shakeups are not finished yet. I think once they're able to get Forbes in there, I think they'll really be able to start to evaluate where things are. Hopefully this Sunday, you do have Von Miller on the other side. So that's always a challenge. I'm curious to see how that's going to go. But yeah, you still have Von Miller to deal with, and this offensive line is really going to have to hold their own against him. And hopefully they're able to protect Baker. And look, they went in there last year, got a W. The Broncos are not happy about that, so they're going to get the Browns. Browns are going to get the Broncos' best shot come Sunday. But for the Browns' sake, Joe Flacco will not be starting for the Broncos. He is out. Brandon Allen will be starting the game on Sunday for Denver. They asked Vic Fangio today in the conference call about what he's seen from Allen so far, and his response was, "We really haven't seen much of him." So take that for what it is. It should be an interesting game. I think this defense can do things to confuse a rookie quarterback, but it's going to be it's not an easy task going over there and getting a win. And I know Denver's been pretty bad this season, but you can never count out a team at home in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, the trend is going towards the Browns on Sunday, but this is I'm not taking this game lightly. Their defense is still really good, even though Bradley Chubb's out. They still have Miller. They have great secondary. Fangio is a defensive mastermind, so I would expect that he's got some tricks up his sleeve. But the one plus side, even though Flacco hasn't been that good this year either, is that they are facing a quarterback who's never taken an NFL snap, never thrown a pass outside of the preseason. But, he's got a strong running game behind him. He's got some good weapons. Cortland Sutton's been great. But, their offensive line hasn't been that good. Their left tackle, Garrett Bowles, is pretty bad, which is unfortunate for them because he was a first-round pick a couple years ago. But I would expect our defense, especially our pass rush, to get after Allen, and hopefully that'll play in the Browns' favor. If for some reason Brandon Allen comes out and looks like Kurt Warner did his rookie year, or the first time he got a chance to play, I would be on code red Sunday night after the Denver game if somehow the Broncos win, because we already know that there's a buzz for Kitchens to get fired. And if they lose to Brandon Allen and the Broncos, who quite frankly aren't that good, Anthony, we might be in trouble.
You could already make an argument that we're already in trouble. Let's give our predictions for the San Francisco 49ers, who are still undefeated, and the Arizona Cardinals on Thursday Night Football tomorrow night. To give you guys an update of our 1085 Pick'em Challenge, Jack went an impressive 14-1 last week. Nailed his lock of the week and got the bonus point for being the closest to the final score in the Browns-Patriots game. I went 12-3, which is not too shabby, but with going 14-1, and getting that bonus points. Jack has reopened up his 5-point lead. So, Jack, this game tomorrow night, who you got?
Man, it's hard to go against San Francisco, and I'm ultimately going to go against them. Their defense has been dominant. Nick Bosa, he's starting to make some noise for Defensive Player of the Year. I know it's kind of a three-player race right now between our own Myles Garrett, Shaq Barrett, who's been probably the shock of the NFL, one of the shocks of the NFL world this year, and, of course, Jamie Collins, who's been dominating up in New England. I think Bosa's going to enter the picture. He's been crazy good, 3 sacks and an interception last week against Carolina. The 49ers running game, as we know, they killed us, and they've been killing teams across the league. Kyle Shanahan, the plan is finally working. It's taken a couple years. Him and John Lynch have built a great roster. They're 7-0. You can make an argument that they're better than New England. They're the only undefeated teams left. Got to pick the 49ers here. The Cardinals have been really good. I think they've been a lot better than people thought. Kyler Murray has looked good at times. He's also looked like a deer in the headlights sometimes. But, they just acquired Kenyon Drake. They got to get him in the system. But I do not see them snapping the undefeated streak of the 49ers. So I'm definitely going with San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm on the fence against this one. Thursday night football games are weird. We've seen that over the years. It'd be very tough for me to pick against San Francisco at this point. But, I think I have to go with them in this game. Like I said, I'm really on the fence again with this one, but I'll go with the 49ers, and hopefully both of us are starting 1-0 this week. I need to catch up some points, so we'll have an article out with the rest of our picks for this week, as well as I'm sure a couple more leading up to the game on Sunday. We're going to have another podcast episode as we wrap up the week and prepare for the game, so be on the lookout for that. Jack, is there anything else you want to discuss before we get out of here?
No, not at all.
All right. You guys can follow Jack on Twitter at JMcCurryCLE. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at AnthonyJokey. Be sure to follow our new Twitter account for our website. It is at the Dogland. To visit our website, go to www.dog.land. That'll take you right to the website. We absolutely appreciate everybody who has read us so far. The reception has been really nice, and we appreciate all of our readers and our listeners. Thank you. We appreciate you. This is why we do this. We care about the Browns so much that not only do we want to have a podcast, but we also want to have a place to write. And thank you guys for listening and reading us. We really, truly appreciate it. You can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio. And with all that, we're going to get out of here. We'll be back on Friday, like I said, and go Browns.